Hey guys, welcome back to Medical Coding with Blue. Today's episode is all about study tips for those that are in fast-paced medical billing and coding programs. If you are brand new to my channel, welcome. I am Blue. I'm a medical coder. The thing that I always recommend when you are starting out in looking for a really good school to go to for medical billing and coding is to look for a program that is 9, 12, or 18 months long. Sometimes people get caught up in these really fast accelerated programs because they get sold this idea of, oh, you'll be done in just a few weeks and you can be on your way to a really good career. It doesn't take that much to learn. It is a lot to learn, guys. It is not easy, and it is always going to be this thing of, well, there's always going to be accelerated programs. So today I'm going to talk about study tips for those of you that are in a accelerated medical billing and coding program. If they are telling you that you only need to study 1 hour and you should be good to go, then you need to be studying way more than that because of the simple fact that there is so much to learn. And if you say, well, Blue, I'm going over the book with them and everything, and it's just what they're saying that it is. If you are studying to be a medical biller or a coder, and you're going through one of the associations to take their certification exam, the American Health Information Management Association or the American Academy of Professional Coders, then I hope that you heed my advice. You are going to have to study a lot harder than perhaps a 16-week program or a 6-month program. You're going to have to study a lot more than what your school is telling you you need to study. Because in order to be prepared for the real world, you're going to have to know what people who have gone to school for longer know. And if you already have a background in medical, say you're going from being a nurse to being a medical coder and you decided to go through one of these accelerated medical coding programs, being a nurse does not guarantee that you're going to be able to grasp the material right away. I'm going to be honest with you there because it depends on how it's explained to you. That's first of all. I have trained many nurses, okay? I've helped many nurses to understand the fundamentals of medical coding. And it is my pleasure to do so because that is what I do. But I will say this. If you're under the impression that it is going to be so easy for you in that you've already done it when you were working in a doctor's office, oh, I did the coding. Code selection is not the same as actual, like, looking at the documentation and comprehending what you're reading, applying the rules and the guidelines, and being able to get your codes from there. It is completely different. So that is one little word I got to say about that. Now, when you are doing your studies, you need to agree with yourself that you've got to do more than what they're telling you. Because if you're only meeting a couple of hours a week and they're telling you to just study for 1 hour a day, you really do need to be making it 20 hours. If you are working, then do 20 hours. If you're not working, this needs to be your full-time job, is studying. You need to be doing 40 hours a week. Well, Blue, no, that's a lot. That's too much. If you're doing 20 hours additional in conjunction with your program, which is maybe a couple of hours meeting a week, 20 hours is doable if you're working a full-time job, because that's like working a part-time job. And you could do 5 hours on Sunday, 5 hours on Saturday, and 2 hours every single day. You can find time to do that. It's just temporary, and this is going to help you, make you more confident when you are going to sit for your certification exam. There's nothing worse than getting to the finish line, right? When you're going to go take your certification exam and not knowing what to do and being very unsure of yourself. So that's why I'm telling you guys, take the time now to study, because it is going to put you ahead of the pack when you do start to go apply for jobs as a medical coder, because they are going to give you a test. They have to assess you to see. So even though you've gone through an accelerated program and you passed your certification, doesn't mean that you fully understand what's happening. That's why they give you assessment tests when you go to apply for these jobs. So this is why I'm telling you guys, you got to put in the heavy lifting. You got to start studying. And if you feel lost right now, and say you're 3 weeks in and you feel really lost, it's okay. This happens to all of us. Start making your flashcards. And I will keep harping on flashcards because I believe in flashcards. Flashcards helped me. Now, my program that I went to was at a trade school, but they sat me in front of a computer and they said, here, learn. So I learned at my own pace. I got through in six months. I don't recommend that for everybody because the thing is, I'm a reader and there's a difference there. So even though I did it, it doesn't mean that that's for everybody. And if you can do that, that's great. If you're grasping the material very quickly, then that's okay. But if it is your study cadence to go a little bit slower, that's fine, because your path is going to be different from everybody else's path. That's what makes us, each one of us in medical coding, valuable, because of the way that we learn and the experiences that we've had. It makes us each learn things differently. And when we choose to pass on this knowledge to others, it does help more people. So when you think about it, right, investing all this time into learning is going to help prepare you for the future. Now, if you say, well, I only want to do the school work and I don't have time to do all this other stuff. I have kids and I have a husband and I have a wife and, there's all these things that are going on. I understand that. I really do. But this is just temporary to do all of this studying, and it's going to prepare you, and you want to be successful when you take your first run at your certification exam, right? Taking your first run at your certification exam, whether you do really well or you have to take it again, it doesn't matter because you're on your path. Whatever your path takes you, whether it is taking a couple of runs at it or you cross that finish line the first time, it's going to take all of your willingness to really dive into this field and really understand what you're doing. Now, I recommend that when you are studying and say you're studying for your certification exam, either with AHIMA or AAPC, the CCA or the CPC, because those are the two entry-level credentials with the respective associations. If you're doing the studying for the certification exam, don't rely on the certification study manuals. I will say that right now. A lot of people think that, oh, I got the certification study manual, so that should be good enough. And that'll prepare me. It's a template for testing yourself, testing your speed and testing your timing, right? And getting you into that practice of looking codes up in the book and things like that. That's what those are designed for. The specific questions that are on the test are never going to be in the practice book. A lot of people think that. They are not in the practice books, guys, because then everybody would pass and there would be really no way to gauge the knowledge base of new coders. So don't rely on those certification exam books. Use them as a tool to help you because that is what they're designed for. Make yourself to sit in a very quiet room or a quiet place for however long the certification exam is for your association. With AAPC, it's 5 hours and 40 minutes. With AHIMA, the CCA exam is 2 hours. So make sure that you are by yourself, that you can pace yourself during that time. You don't have your cell phone, you're not getting bothered, so that you can test yourself to see how well you're doing. And this can put you in a mode of study. So when you're doing those things, it's really going to be able to help you. I recommend going to the website justcoding.com. This is a wonderful website. I will say this. This is not an ad for Just Coding, but I will say this. They should love me because I have been singing their praises for the last couple of months. This website is amazing because they have access to all sorts of free articles and they do have access to free quizzes. They have like 5-question quizzes on diagnosis coding for the inpatient procedures and for the outpatient procedures. So you go through and you answer these, you look up the codes and then you answer the question and then it'll tell you whether the answer that you got is right or wrong. So this is a very valuable tool and it's free. So, and it gives you the answers if you got it wrong. So that's the thing, right or wrong, it'll give you the answers if you're right, if prove you wrong. But it is really an amazing tool to use. It's very good to get good practice into doing those things. So just make sure that you're taking advantage of these free resources. There's also cms.gov, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. A lot of the things that you want to know are going to be on that website. So I really recommend exploring the website and trying to find out all the information that you can about just reading just different articles and things through there. I also recommend reading the ICD-10 diagnosis guidelines, the official guidelines for reporting. Read it. And when I mean read it, like one time per week, you need to read the entire guidelines front to back. You need to read them, and they're in the ICD-10 CM diagnosis book, because knowing your guidelines forwards and backwards is really going to help you. And especially because you're in a accelerated medical coding program, more is going to be expected of you very quickly. And in order for you to be able to really concentrate and understand what you're doing and understand what's being thrown at you, you need to prepare yourself. So reading those guidelines forward and backwards every week, once per week, that's what I recommend. Now, whether you choose to follow my advice or not is entirely up to you guys, but I've been there, done that, and got a t-shirt. I'm just saying, knowing those guidelines is going to pay itself in dividends for years. It will pay itself off if you just invest the time. And it's only one time per week. But you got to read them, the whole thing, once per week. And then depending on how long your program is, if it's 16 weeks, 16 times you read those guidelines. That's a lot. And you know what else is going to happen? The more you read those guidelines, the faster you're going to get with reading. The faster you get with reading, the more efficiently you're going to be able to get through that certification exam. Because you're not going to get there and get hung up on these word problems, right? So think about that. It is to your best interest to be able to start doing those things now, especially if you're in those accelerated medical coding programs, because I meet a lot of new people who find themselves in these programs and they perhaps did not do their research beforehand. And then they're like, oh my gosh, what do? I don't understand this. And then they discover my channel and they're like, wow, I wish I would have found you before I would have signed up for this program. I am going to leave the link for the independent sequence study. Independent study sequence. There we go. I'm going to leave the one that I came up with as a template. Okay, it's just a template. If you have background in anatomy, physiology, and medical terminology, that is totally fine. You can totally skip that part. But this is designed for people who don't want to go through a program, because that's the great thing about medical billing and coding is that you don't have to go through a formal program to sit for the CCA or to sit for the CPC. So with that in mind, if you follow the template, you can be done in 12 months. Like I said, if you already have your background in anatomy, physiology, medical terminology, you can totally skip that. You can go however fast you want to. This is entirely up to you. But if you follow it and you get through all of it, then it should prepare you to take the certification exam, whether you're going with AHIMA or AAPC. So it's totally up to you. You can use that to supplement your accelerated medical billing and coding program, and maybe that will help you as well. So I hope that it does, because like I said, there are so many things out there when it comes to these medical billing and coding programs. If I'm going to recommend any program, I always recommend the associations themselves. Now, I have not been through the AAPC online program, so I don't know. But I know that it's there. With AHIMA, I am a certified member with AHIMA, so that is why I would always recommend them as well. But I recommend both associations because they are the major medical coding association powerhouses. I do not think that one is better than the other, so please don't ask me that question. I get that question quite often too. Well, which one is better? The thing about deciding which one is better is it is on the caliber of the coder themselves. I have met good coders and bad coders with both associations. So to say that there's one that's better than the other is completely false. And don't fall into that trap of thinking that either. Please, guys, don't. I'm going to be talking about that tomorrow on Q&A Tuesday, but I'm not going to go into that too much no more. But I want you guys to know that both associations are reputable. And if you look in your area, you'll see which credential they're asking for. But as long as you are certified with AHIMA or AAPC, then you're good to go. And whether or not they're asking for, well, because sometimes they'll say CPC preferred. So if you are with AHIMA and you have like a CCS or CCSP or CCA, go ahead and apply anyway. And I always tell you guys that, because the thing about preferred does not mean required. And that's something to think about as well. If you haven't checked out my medical coding job listings explain playlist, you really should, because there's a lot of things about the verbiage when you're applying for jobs, especially for people that are brand new, because I do have entry-level ones that I did. So that is something to be aware of. Now, get yourself on a schedule, especially if you're in these accelerated programs, but do give yourself a break. If you need a night off, that is totally fine, where you don't even touch your books, you don't even touch the flashcards, you aren't even looking at any YouTube videos. That is okay, because we all need to reset our mind and have that one day of freedom to do whatever. So just make sure that you get back on and you're doing your schedule like you need to, because it is going to be all about discipline right now. And especially because you're going through an accelerated medical coding program, it's going to require a lot more of you. A lot of times they don't talk about that, especially when they're trying to get you to sign up for these programs, because they want your money. They want you to sign up for their program. And when these schools, their job is to make sure that they can get the students in, and to convince adults to go back to school is going to take a lot, because there's usually a lot of excuses that go along with it. And not that it's bad. And I know that there's different situations for different people, and I get it. But a lot of times adults will say, I can't because of XYZ. But their job is to tell you why you can. And so once they have you hooked in, then they're like, okay, now we got them. And that's their job. That's what they do. So while it works out for some, sometimes it doesn't work out for others. And sometimes it feels like, it was a waste of money, because they feel like they weren't given all the attention and the teaching that they needed. But when it comes to medical billing and coding, a lot of it is self-learning. So you need to get used to it now, because even when you get out in the real world, a lot of times there's not going to be somebody to train you either. There may be a little bit of training, but not always. So that's why I say learning where to find those good resources, like the Merck manual, and going, again, not an ad, optum360coding.com. This website, it is filled with lots of really good books for medical coders, and especially brand new medical coders too, because they have a thing called the Coding Companion, and it's broken down by specialty, and it gives you all of the procedures that's in the CPT book, and then it talks about the diagnoses that go with that, and it talks about the definition of that procedure. It's got RVUs in it. It is such a valuable resource. I really love the Coding Companions. Then there's also the Coder Desk reference for diagnosis and for the procedures as well, because that breaks down in layman's terms the definitions of the diagnosis codes and of the procedure codes, outpatient and inpatient. The ICD-10 PCS, they have one for that as well. So these are just something that, again, resources that you can use if you are looking for help, for additional help. It's going to be about reading. It's 90% of what we do as medical coders is read. So again, get used to it now. Take advantage of all the videos that they have on YouTube for surgeries, for anatomy, for medical terminology. And I always recommend, if you are struggling with medical terminology, to learn your prefixes, your suffixes, and your root words. I have my own Patreon channel. I'm going to plug my Patreon channel now. My Patreon channel is a lot like YouTube, but the viewers there pledge towards the creator, which would be me. And on there, I make worksheets. I do crossword puzzles. I do matchups. I do word searches to help with medical terminology. I also do for prefixes, suffixes, and root words. I do worksheets for those as well. And I talk about different I do different critical thinking exercises, and I do some diagnosis and procedures and inpatient procedures. So inpatient and outpatient procedures. I've got it all on my Patreon channel. And the pledge levels start out at just $1 per month. It gives you access to all of that. And higher pledge levels, as they go up, some of them do include one-on-one tutoring time with me. And if you're interested in tutoring and you don't want to sign up for my Patreon, that is totally fine. I will leave my contact information in the description box below as well. So that's going to wrap it up for me. If you are in one of those accelerated medical billing and coding programs, I wish you luck. Do not give up, especially because you paid for this. You may as well get your money out of whatever program it is. Get your money's worth, because it's gonna get you on the road at least to studying or deciding, if you really want to do this. But I always recommend to do additional study and get on a schedule. If you're working, do 20 hours a week in addition to your school. Depending on how much school it is. Sometimes it's only 2 hours. And they're telling you need to do only 1 hour, you need to be doing 20 per week. That's a lot, but it's going to help you. Trust me. And if you're unemployed and that's all you're doing, you need to be doing 40 hours a week. It's like a job, because eventually it will be your job. All right, so I'm going to wrap this one up. If you are a medical coder, a medical coding student, somebody curious about the fascinating world of medical coding, a provider, or a nurse, I invite you to like and subscribe and follow me on my journey in medical coding. I will see y'all next time. Bye.